Committed to growth, you are warmly welcomed at People's Church. Jim Federer, I am one of the worship associates here at People's Church. I am joined in the sanctuary by Judy Michelin on the piano. Deb Booth is running the tech. Bill Hart is running the sound system. Our preacher is our interim pastor, David Wise, and Karen Pierce is our special musician. Kathleen Mavidi and I invite you at home to join us in singing the hymns. There are a few changes in the order of service that was emailed yesterday. We have substituted 2 of the hymns. The PowerPoint we displayed today for the hymns will be correct. In addition, the offering and interlude will follow the lighting of the candles instead of following the sermon. Next Sunday, the service will be led primarily by Meadville Lombard students and a recent graduate. The 8th principle is becoming far more prominent in UU circles. Rodney Biggs will lead the worship service, assisted by worship associate Angie Pierce Jennings. You will want to make sure you hear their take on the 8th principle. Faith Formation meets this afternoon at 2 p.m. at Morgan Creek Park. The annual Halloween costume contest will be held Saturday, October 24th at 2 p.m. at the home of Rich and Marianne Patterson. More info will be shared in the e-weekly. The Cedar Rapids Concert Chorale will present a performance of Requiem by W.A. Mozart in a memorial tribute to those who died during the COVID pandemic. It will be held on October 24th at 2:30 p.m. at First Lutheran Church. Pastor David will be participating with a reading during the ecumenical service. Kathleen Mavidi will now has an announcement on behalf of the minister search team.
So you've been hearing that we've been working on a weekly basis, and we have gotten great input from many of you through the survey. The search team has their own survey, their own questionnaire to fill out, 54 questions, and we're able to answer most of them with the input you've given us through the survey that so many of you have taken already. And there are some questions that just were so meaty that they couldn't fit into a survey. Things like, what do you need to build trust between yourself and a minister? And the exciting one of what is the one thing a minister could do to totally trash the ministry? So, some interesting, really important things to know for the candidates that we talk to. So because we need to have real-time interaction, what we're going to do is 2 of us will join you in 2 of the breakout rooms and ask you these questions. Ideally, since we want to be as efficient as possible and let you talk over the sermon as well, we're going to just ask for a go-round for people's opinions on a given question, and if you have anything more to say and we just run out of time, you can find the search team's emails. I think coming up in this week's e-weekly, you'll be able to find our emails and our phone numbers, contact us directly, or you can mail the team's account, which is pcuu.search@google.com. So thank you so much for hanging in at the breakout rooms so that we can start getting these weighty and important questions answered. We appreciate it.
And now let our service begin with Karen.
Now how many times have you heard someone say, if I had his money, you know I'd do things my way. How little they know, it's so hard to find one rich man in 10 with a satisfied mind. Now once I had money, fortune and fame, I had everything to win in life's game. Then one day it happened, I lost every dime, but I'm richer by far with a satisfied mind. Now money can't buy back your youth when you're old, or a friend when you're lonely, or a heart that's grown cold. That the wealthiest person is a pauper at times. Come better the man with a satisfied mind. Now when my life is over and my time has run out, all my friends and my loved ones, I'm gonna leave them, no doubt. But there's one thing for certain, when it comes my time, I'm gonna leave this old world with a satisfied mind. I'm gonna leave this old world with a satisfied mind.
Should also say that Jackie and Brian are helping with the tech this morning as well. What is it that calls you here? That calls you onward? That calls you inward? What leads you homeward? What is it that gives you the power to make the change, to ask that question, to take that journey? What is it that says you have done well, that asks you to learn more, that brings you to stillness, that holds you up on hard times? It is relationship, the beating heart of our faith. It begins when we share this hour, our truths, this air, our hearts. Come, come, Let us worship together.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a roll of song and rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
We come together this morning to worship and light this chalice because within us there is something that knows we need more than we can find in our aloneness. We know instinctively in the depths of ourselves that we need others for this journey of life, even though we also guard our independence and individuality quite jealously. So let us celebrate all that makes us unique, yet also all that makes us one. And let us dream dreams of all that we can do together. Will you join in our affirmation? Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to love one another.
And now for something completely different. A time for all ages with me in the flesh. I'm actually super excited to be here. This morning's story comes from the seventh principle It's actually, depending on who you talk to, the inspiration that led to the development of the seventh principle. And it's a story from Mahayana Buddhism entitled Indra's Net. One night, at the end of one of the Vasa retreats in the Jetavada Park in Sravasti, one of the followers of the Buddha asked him, "Master, what is the ultimate foundation of life in the world?" And Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, raised his eyes to the sky and contemplated the stars, and he smiled as if remembering. The ultimate foundation of life and the world is the net of Indra. He finally answered, lowering his eyes to look with affection at his disciple. Indra established the foundations of the world, and to do this, he hung his palace on Mount Meru, a net of silk threads, like a spider web, which extends to infinity in all directions. In each knot of the net, he put a precious gem, which reflects in its perfect facets all of the other gems which cover the net. And when you approach to look into any of those gems, you discover that the gems reflected in it reflect in turn and in every one of the other gems of this immense silk fabric, and so on to infinity. "I do not understand, Master," said the disciple, frowning. "Where are all these gems you're talking about? I do not see them in this world." The Buddha replied, "You are one of these gems, and every person, and every animal, and every tree, and every plant, and every insect, and every speck of dust that floats up into a sunbeam and down onto a road is a gem in the net of Indra. Every emotion that you feel, and all the feelings that all beings have ever felt, even thousands of years ago, and every idea that has ever crossed the mind of each being since the beginning of time is a gem of Indra's net. Within you is reflected everything that exists and everything that has ever existed in the universe, and you are a reflection of everything that exists. You are inside each human being, every animal, tree, and plant. At every moment, the whole world is inside you, and you are inside everything. You could never exist by yourself alone, because you exist by virtue of the glorious existence of everything around you." And a tear appeared in the eye of the disciple, and all the stars in the sky were reflected in that tear as if in a gem. And Gautama Buddha added, with a look that seemed to caress the soul of the disciple, "This is why I say to all of you to take care in the happiness of everything that surrounds you, of all beings, whether you believe they live and feel or not, because they have their existence also in the depths of your heart." Thank you.
The first reading, The Central Task of the Religious Community, by Mark Morrison Reed. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectiveness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. Now our hymn. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. The second reading is called The Grout by Marcus Hartlief. The Unitarian Universalist congregation where I served as an intern made a mosaic tree of life the summer before I arrived. Congregants of all ages came together to craft the tree's leaves using bits and pieces of broken ceramics, jewelry, glass, and stone. There are many precious personal items on the tree, including fragments of the Berlin Wall, a father's watch face, pieces of great-grandmother's china, and a key to the front door of a loved home. Like the members of the community that brought them together, each part is imbued with memories and meaning. Each fragment holds a piece of truth. Unitarian Universalists are mosaic makers. We are a people who bring together the broken pieces of our histories and the shining pieces of our seeking, and piece by piece, create a mosaic religion. Our tree of life is found in the stories of our living tradition. The bead from a transformational moment of worship at a youth conference, the bit of paper stamped with the blazing emblem of the Unitarian Service Committee that saved lives during World War II, the button or patch on a backpack that proudly proclaims the first justice issue that lit our souls on fire. But our mosaic making tells another story too, one that is often more difficult to see, one that is essential to the purpose of religious community, one that lies not in the beautiful and broken bits and pieces, but in the grout. Grout, the chalky, gritty stuff that is squeezed between the cracks of tiles. In a mosaic, the grout holds the image together, unifying disparate pieces into a whole. The grout of a community takes years to lay and settle. Grout happens in board meetings and committee meetings and endless emails and slow-moving institutions. It is in weekly potlucks shared by neighbors, a ride to church, and coffee in the social hall after worship. While the folks who show up for church only on Christmas and Easter will hopefully enjoy the beauty of the mosaic they find, they may never know the power of the grout that holds us through all the seasons of life. We help to make the grout when we learn each other's names and when we reach out across generational divides. We help to make the grout when we show up on Sunday morning without having checked first to see if we're interested in the sermon topic. When a newborn arrives to be blessed by the community, it is the grout that enables us to welcome them. And it is in the grout that we rest when we gather to grieve and memorialize a beloved one who has died. Hold us, O grout, gather us in through time and space, and make all our broken pieces whole in community. In our multiplicity, make us one. From each of our jagged edges, give us the shape of a communal beauty.
Thank you, Jim. And for the grout, if you will, I keep watching COVID numbers in Lynn County, and thankfully for the last 3 weeks they have stayed steady or gone down. So if we see another week of that, and things continue in this vein, hopefully by the time Paulette preaches on the 24th, we will allow some folks to come in and be part of the congregation that day, as long as the numbers are staying down. I am excited about the service next Sunday with the seminarians and the recent seminary graduate. Seminaries are important places in the life of a congregation. It has been said that pastors go to seminaries, then they go out and then they learn in the real world what a church is really like. And there is some truth to that, but seminaries do provide a good basis and a good foundation. So I'm excited next week that you get to hear from some seminarians. When I was in seminary, we all pastored churches. Each seminary does things a little bit differently. But at Meadville, they get to do sermons occasionally and other things and work in churches as interns and things. So next week will be a treat for you. This past Tuesday evening, also 4 members of the social justice team met at St. Stephen's Lutheran Church with their anti-racist team. Since their team had just started meeting in April, they contacted Peoples about sharing what we had learned in our somewhat longer journey on addressing racism and white supremacy. One of the goals established by this congregation in the developmental ministry program was being more involved in the community. And this is a great example of the work being done at Peoples, being shared with the greater Cedar Rapids faith community. So thank you, Jim Wasta, Clarice, Kathy, and Marcia for going to St. Stephen's and sharing with them the work that is being done here. The little old couple walked slowly into McDonald's that cold winter evening. They looked out of place. amid the young families and the young couples eating there that night. Some of the customers looked admiringly at them. You could tell what the admirers were thinking. Look, here's a couple who's been through a lot together, probably for 50 or 60 years or more. The little old man walked right up to the cash register, placed his order with no hesitation, and then paid for their meal. The couple took a table near the back wall and started taking food off of the tray. There was one hamburger, one order of French fries, and one drink. The little old man unwrapped the plain hamburger and carefully cut it in half. He placed one half in front of his wife. Then he carefully counted out the French fries, divided them in two piles, and neatly placed one pile in front of his wife. He took a sip of the drink, his wife took a sip, and then set the cup down between them. You've seen couples like this. I know couples like this. As the man began to eat his few bites of hamburger, the crowd began to get restless. Again, you could tell what they were thinking. That poor old couple, all they can afford is one meal for the two of them. As the man began to eat his French fries, one young man stood and came over to the old couple's table. He politely offered to buy another meal for the old couple to eat. The old man replied that they were just fine. They were used to sharing everything. Then the crowd noticed that the little old lady hadn't eaten a bite. She just sat there watching her husband eat and occasionally taking turns sipping the drink. Again, the young man came over and begged them to let him buy them something to eat. This time the lady explained that no, they were used to sharing everything. As the little old man finished eating and was wiping his face neatly with a napkin, the young man could stand it no longer. Again, he came over to their table and offered to buy some food. After being politely refused again, he finally asked a question of the little old lady. "Ma'am, why aren't you eating? You said you share everything. What is it that you are waiting for?" And she replied, "The teeth." They share everything. Relationships are interesting. Sometimes relationships might go too far. And there's a lot that could be unpacked in that story. There's far more than the humor that is there, and I'm not going to go into that this morning because I think we all know that some of our senior citizens are people like that who can barely struggle to have any meal whatsoever. But relationships are things that we build over time, things that we develop as time goes on. It's not something that you just fall into overnight. Whether we're talking about a romantic relationship or a relationship amongst friends, we have to build those relationships. According to many people, because of the great social media that we have in this world, we have more friends than ever before. The question I would ask you is, are they really friends, or are they mere acquaintances that you pass through cyberspace with? Facebook with Milan, University of Milan years ago, announced there were only 4.74 degrees of separation among its users. That contrast with the 6 degrees of separation that we've heard so much about. Social media was believed or thought to be bringing people closer together, but does it really do that? The phrase online community might be an oxymoron, kind of like an Amtrak schedule or airline food. Researchers a few years ago put teenage girls in stressful situations like solving difficult mathematical problems while measuring the girls' levels of cortisol, a biomarker for stress, and oxytocin, a hormone associated with feelings of well-being and trust. During that test, teens were permitted to either text their mothers or to call their mom on the phone. Which do you think most of them did? Most of them called. You would think the texting, because that's all that we ever get from our kids these days, our text. But they wanted the soothing tone of mother's voice, they say. It lowered the stress levels in the students who were part of that study. The texting didn't have that effect. How many times when you call a business and you get one of those recordings that just goes on and on and on, you think, what in the world have we come to? It's so refreshing when you pick up the phone and call and actually get a human. I had to call our insurance company the other day in Lisbon, and a human answered the phone. You know, it's amazing. They still exist. They're still out there. The human presence, the shelter of each other, is something that helps us. There is no digital substitute for a hug. There is no digital substitute for a soothing voice. There is no digital substitute for a handshake or a smile. The most meaningful relationships, whether we're talking about romantic or friendships or congregations, they happen in person, getting to know each other, not over the computer. And yes, I am thrilled that for the last year and whatever months we've had the ability to do things like Zoom and YouTube and be able to still connect in some way. But it's not a substitute for the real thing. I want people back in these pews. I want people to say good morning when the worship associate says good morning, and to hear voices out there. We want that getting together. We want those relationships. We don't want all of those degrees of separation that are out there. We want to be together. Religion is about being connected, about our relationships with ourselves, our local community, and the world at large. It's these relationships that give our lives their worth. This week I was at the UU Ministers Association retreat out at Prairie Woods. And there were just a few of us there because of COVID issues, but it was so good to sit in a room with other people and talk, in this case, about play and how we can use play in congregations to help get points across and to help deliver messages and everything else. But it was good to be in person. And hopefully we can do that again very soon. Relationships take time. They also take compromise, as many of you have learned over the years. There have been a few conflicts in this congregation in the past, thank goodness. And we have worked through those, and we've come to a good point in our history and in our relationship with each other. But compromise has helped get us there. It can't be my way or your way. It has to be our way, working together. As we go through the search for a settled minister, it is important to be open and honest with the search committee. Tell them the truth. Don't tell them what you think they want to hear. Tell them what your true feelings are. Take that relationship and be open and honest with it. Know that nobody ever wins an argument. That sometimes we have to look at alternatives. There's not necessarily a winner, but sometimes everyone has to just compromise and go on. Understand how others around you understand things and express things. Understand that not every person expresses feelings exactly the same way. If you've ever had kids, you know that not every kid expresses their feelings in the exact same way. They're all different. Every person is different as well. And how your feelings are expressed needs to be respected and listened to by those around you. Don't share in the silent treatment. Don't just sulk and go away in a relationship when it's not something that you want. Participate and talk. And yes, I know that at times it's very hard to do that. But do your best to get into a situation where it would be safe to speak and not to use the silent treatment. And sometimes it's important just to give people space. Now, as a congregation, we've given lots of people lots of spaces lately because we have been so spread out and so not with each other. So we've had a lot of that space, but sometimes relationships require that space. So when we are able to come back, I would imagine it will be much more fulfilling for some folks who value that connection and that closeness than it ever had been before. Relationships aren't easy by any means. relationships with friends, relationships of romantic partners, relationships of people in congregations. They all take time, they all take growth, they all take work. I encourage you to look at those relationships and those friendships that you have around you and see what you can do to make them stronger. And yes, there may be some relationships that you have that need to take a break. Maybe a short break, maybe a long break. Relationships aren't easy, folks, but they are so important to us. May it be so. Amen. Will you join me in an attitude of prayer and silence? For this one moment, know only that you are loved, that you are safe and whole and loved. Know that you belong here, here among us, here upon this earth, in your body. However tired or broken your heart may be, whatever fear, disappointment, anger you carry, for this hour know you are not alone. Feel the presence of others surrounding you, breathing beside you and with you, discovering together the way our voices rise and fall together, in harmony, in hope. Claim here a resilient freedom, the choice for love, for light, to live with joy and gratitude and praise as a form of resistance. Amen. This morning, we light candles in memory of those who have lost their lives and been affected, those affected by COVID. And a second one for all of the children who face uncertainty and abuse in their lives. It's up there, where it was earlier. This is the time for our offering. There are 3 ways to give as outlined on your screen. You can send a check, you can go to the website peoplesuu.org and look for the Donate Now tab, or you can use the new Vanco mobile app on your phone. And now, Karen.
a circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not that circle, make it wider still, till it includes and embraces all the living. Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong and guilt, but will that human bonds remain unbroken. Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or nation will truly by themselves stand on their feet. See eye to eye with laughter and elation.
Will you join me in our words to extinguish our chalice? We extinguish this chalice flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go now in peace, knowing that relationships are hard, but the relationships are indeed the lifeblood of our lives. Amen.